Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about using wax resist as a surface treatment. Wax resist is a way to create a design on a piece of pottery where when you glaze it, you can wipe off the glaze and the pottery will be bare wherever you apply the wax resist. Like we do with normal glazing, we wax the bottoms of our pots so that we don't have glaze on the bottom when we go to fire it, otherwise it sticks to the kiln shelf. So normally we dip, right, and that's that heavy wax ring that you see on the bottom of this bowl. But the wax that we're going to use for decorative wax resist is a water-based wax resist that comes in a small jar like this. Okay, and it's water-based, so it's always liquid in the jar as long as the lid is closed. And we can apply it with a brush really easily, and you have a lot of control over it. So I wax resist the bottom of this with it. You can sort of see that it's a slightly different color from the rest of the pot, and then there's some patterns and stuff on here that you can kind of see, but because the wax resist is dry, is clear or white, it just kind of blends in with the clay body. So this, I've created these designs on it already, and I've allowed it to dry because this wax resist is water based. If I were to paint it on or brush it on my design and then glaze it right away, the water in the glaze would hydrate the wax resist, and when I go to wipe it off, I'd wipe the wax resist off too because it hasn't had time to dry and adhere to the clay. So I did this one a few days ago so that the wax resist would dry and be on here so that I can dip this one. And then as for brushing, I'm just going to brush on this one. So wherever you brush the wax resist, it's going to be bare clay once it's been fired. So we don't really want to do it on the inside of anything. We want to be functional. So this bowl I still want to be able to eat out of. So any wax resist design I'm going to do on the outside. So I'm just going to shake it just a little bit to make sure it's well mixed in the container. And then I can take my brush. I usually pull what's on the lid off first. And then I can go in and I can just brush my design onto my pot. And however you want your design to appear, that's fine. It's kind of up to you. But remember, it's just there won't be any glaze wherever that design is. So I brush it on, right, and you can see kind of it's pooled on the edges. I want to make sure this is nice and even, or if I've got big clumps like that, it's just going to take longer to dry. So after you brush it on, you want to let it sit at least overnight, maybe if not a couple of days. So you could do a wax resist one day and then maybe you glaze a whole bunch of pots 3 days later or something, but do it a couple days apart, at least a day apart, so that the wax resist really has time to dry. So once your pattern's dry on there and it's set on there, now we can dip it in our glaze. So our glaze, you could do it the same with brushing under glaze, but with brushing under glaze we can also control a lot better where our glaze goes and doesn't go. So I'm going to stir up my glaze here really quick so that I can dip this in. And you'll already see that it has started to not stick to the areas that I put the wax resist on. Okay, and then all I have to do is take a sponge and wipe off the areas where the wax resist is. Okay. So now when I go to glaze this, or when I go to fire this, and it fires in the kiln, the glaze won't move into that space where the wax resist is. And I have this nice design where the clay, the actual clay comes through the glaze and creates a nice little pattern or design on the surface of the pot that you made. So that's wax resist that's used for decorative purposes, not just for doing the bottom. Again, when we do the bottom, we're going to dip it in the hot wax because this stuff is really more for the decorative part, the way we use it in our classroom. So that's wax resist and how you can use it and create some cool designs and patterns on the outside of your bisqueware.